Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. The world is on edge. In the Atlantic Ocean, US and Russian warships are playing chicken at sea. The Americans have seized an oil tanker. In the Arctic, Greenland faces the threat of an American invasion. Reports say Donald Trump is quote-unquote discussing options to take over the island. Meanwhile, he's taking claim to Venezuelan oil, and reports also say that Maduro's dance may have sealed his fate. Apparently, Trump thought that the Venezuelan leader was mocking him with his moves. Also bringing you the story of Celia Flores, Venezuela's first lady and a key player behind the scenes, also now behind bars in the US. Back in Washington, Trump imitates Prime Minister Modi as he once again trains his guns on India. In Iran, the protests are spiraling. 36 people have died as the regime cracks down. In Yemen, the crisis escalates, with Saudi Arabia claiming that a separatist leader has fled. In Bangladesh, the Jamaat seems to be getting cold feet. As elections draw close, they're questioning the polls. In Europe, heavy snowfall paralyzes travel. And are you suffering from social jet lag? We'll tell you all about it. The headlines first. India projects an economic growth of 7.4% for 2026. It will be driven by a steady momentum in services and manufacturing. The projection underscores the resilience of the Indian economy amid global financial headwinds and Donald Trump's tariff heat. Syrians flee Aleppo's Kurdish areas as the army begins shelling these neighborhoods. The government has declared them closed military zones amid clashes with the Kurdish-led forces. The violence has led to suspension of flights to and from Aleppo. Schools, universities and government offices in the city have also been shut down. China's top diplomat kicks off a New Year trip to Africa as his tour includes stops in Ethiopia, Somalia, Tanzania and Lesotho. Wang Yi's trip to Somalia comes after the Israeli foreign minister visited the breakaway region of Somaliland. China is Africa's top business partner. Cricket's governing body rejects Bangladesh's request to move their T20 World Cup matches out of India, say sources to Firstpost, but Dhaka claims the talks are still on. Political relations between the two countries have soured since the ouster of Sheikh Hasina in 2024. The World Cup begins on the 7th of February. And Norway recorded its hottest year ever in 2025 after a strong summer heat wave and an unusually mild winter. Last month, large parts of Norway celebrated Christmas without snow. 2025 was also the UK's warmest year on record. A rusting oil tanker, 2 nuclear-powered navies and 1 Atlantic flashpoint. It's almost like a rerun of the Cold War. Russia versus America at sea. A short while ago, the US military completed a risky operation. They seized a sanctioned oil tanker, a ship that was flying the Russian flag, a ship that was supposed to be escorted by Russian submarines. I know it sounds like a dangerous flashpoint, so let's look at the build-up. Last month, the US imposed a partial blockade on Venezuela. They banned sanctioned tankers from the region. If any sanctioned ship came close, the US would seize it. Since then, 2 such vessels have been taken, the Skipper and the Centuries. But a third ship eluded them, and that's the Bella 1. This ship is around 24 years old. It tried to dock in Venezuela and load up oil, but as tensions rose, it fled. The US Navy then tried to chase this ship through the Atlantic, and that's when something strange happened. Until then, Bella 1 was an obscure vessel. No clear owner, no clear flag, no clear jurisdiction. Basically, fair game for the US Navy. But as it fled the Caribbean, the ship registered itself as Russian. The crew painted a Russian flag on its side and they renamed the vessel from Bella 1 to Marinera. So suddenly, this stateless ship became a Russian ship, meaning it now had Moscow's protection. And that's why Russia has reportedly sent a submarine to escort this ship safely to Murmansk. That's a port city in the Russian Arctic. But like I said, the ship never made it. It was seized by the US military from the northern Atlantic, reportedly from near Iceland. We have a statement from the US military. Here's what they've said. This seizure supports President Donald Trump's proclamation targeting sanctioned vessels that threaten the security and stability of the Western Hemisphere. The operation was executed by Homeland Security components with the support from the Pentagon. Russian state media have also confirmed this. Moscow had warned the US against seizing this vessel, yet Washington went ahead. So what happened to the Russian subs? We'll have to wait for the official statement from Moscow. Maybe the naval support did not reach the ship. Maybe the US did not care. Either way, this is a very dangerous incident. It makes you wonder what's so special about this ship. And right now it's empty. It's not even carrying any oil. But for Russia, such ships are very important. You see, after the Ukraine war, the West cut off Russia from global shipping. Western tankers won't carry Russian oil and Western companies won't insure it. So what did Moscow do? They turned to a global dark fleet. These are ships which are more than 15 years old. They have no clear owner, no clear flag and no insurance. There are more than 1,000 such ships in the dark fleet, and these ships ferry sanctioned oil, whether it's Russian or Iranian or Venezuelan. And for Moscow, this dark fleet is important. It keeps their oil revenue intact. And for the Americans? For the Americans, it's leverage against their rivals. Both Iran and Russia use the Black Fleet. So if Washington can crack down, they can put pressure on Moscow and Tehran. Hence, this intense maritime chase. Now, just to be clear, this does not mean that Trump has a problem with sanctioned oil. He has a problem with who buys it. Take a look at his latest announcement on Venezuela. Trump says Caracas will give 30 to 50 million barrels of oil to the US. That's sanctioned Venezuelan oil. Let me quote from what Trump has said. This oil will be sold at its market price and that money will be controlled by me as President of the United States of America to ensure it is used to benefit the people of Venezuela and the United States. We're talking about oil worth nearly $2 billion. Trump says Venezuela will turn this over to America. It's not clear what that means. Is Venezuela selling the oil to America or is the US seizing this oil? That part is not clear yet. Also, where will this oil come from? Venezuela produces around 1 million barrels per day, but since mid-December, they have not been able to export it, meaning they have millions of barrels ready, some in storage and some loaded on ships. Most of this oil would have been sold to China. Instead, it will now be sent to America. Trump will then sell this oil in the world market and he will personally control the proceeds. Doesn't sound fishy at all. As of now, Venezuela has not responded to this claim, but China is understandably angry.
The United States has brazenly resorted to the use of force against Venezuela and demanded that America first be applied when Venezuela disposes of its own oil resources. This is a typical act of bullying, a serious violation of international law, and a grave infringement on Venezuela's sovereignty that also severely undermines the rights of the Venezuelan people. China strongly condemns this.
Now, this is very tricky for Venezuela, especially for their acting president, Delcy Rodriguez. On the one hand, she must be defiant. If not, her revolutionary support base won't back her. She'll be seen as weak. On the other hand, she cannot be too defiant because then the US may attack once again. Yesterday, Rodriguez pushed back against Trump's claims. She said no external power was running Venezuela. She also brushed aside American threats.
The Venezuelan government rules our country. No one else. There is no external agent governing Venezuela. It is Venezuela. Personally, They threaten me. I say it. My destiny is not decided by them. It is decided only by God. That is my answer.
Let's look at the big picture here, and you'll see how absurd it is. The US imposed sanctions on Venezuelan oil. These sanctions crippled the oil industry, so Venezuela sold oil to China. Then this weekend, the US invaded Venezuela, apparently to revive the oil industry that their sanctions had destroyed in the first place. And now the US is taking over that same sanctioned oil. Make it make sense. The fact is, Trump's actions have opened the floodgates of chaos. The impact won't be limited to the Caribbean. It has already spread to the northern Atlantic, with a risky seizure and possible retaliation by Russia.
I just say this. We need Greenland.
Donald Trump is treating the presidency like a property empire, a global real estate portfolio backed by the world's most powerful military. Trump believes Venezuela is in the bag, he's making plans for its oil, and he's already set his eyes on the next target, Greenland.
Let's talk about Greenland in 20 days. By the way, I will say this about Greenland. We need Greenland from a national security situation. It's so strategic. I just say this. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And the European Union needs us to have it. And they know that.
The White House has confirmed this. President Trump is actively discussing a range of options with a goal to acquire Greenland. There are three options on the table: buy Greenland, sign a legal pact, or send in the US military. Let's break it down for you. Option 1, buy Greenland. The idea is not new. Trump floated it back in 2019 during his first term in office. And the logic is quite simple. Offer Denmark a deal and buy the territory outright. The Americans have done it before. In 1867, they bought Alaska from Russia. Back then, the US paid $7.2 million for Alaska. In today's money, that's more than $150 million. Now, Trump is said to be weighing a similar option for Greenland. As of this week, this is his favored option, buying Greenland. And this is according to Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State. He briefed American lawmakers on Monday, and he mentioned that Donald Trump wants a purchase, not a war. At least not yet. So that's the first option, buying the island. Option 2 is forming a compact of free association. What does that mean? What is a compact of free association? It's basically a treaty, a special kind of deal. The US already has such treaties with 3 Pacific islands: Micronesia, Marshall Islands, and Palau. This creates a special relationship, a free association as they call it. It means that these countries stay fully sovereign, but in some areas like defense, it is the United States that calls the shots. Trump could take a similar path with Greenland. In exchange, Greenland would receive financial support and military protection. The third and final option is the use of military force, and it would be the most extreme move. Like we've been telling you, Greenland is not a rogue territory like Venezuela. It is part of the Kingdom of Denmark. Greenland governs itself, but its defense and foreign policy remain in Danish hands, and Denmark is a member of NATO. So NATO's protections extend to Greenland as well. Any US military action would mean attacking a NATO ally, and that would shatter the alliance. It would be an unprecedented and dangerous move. But Trump is seriously considering it. That's something the White House has confirmed.
President Trump has made it well known that acquiring Greenland is a national security priority of the United States, and it's vital to deter our adversaries in the Arctic region. The president and his team are discussing a range of options to pursue this important foreign policy goal, and of course, utilizing the U.S. military is always an option at the commander-in-chief's disposal.
Needless to say, such statements have alarmed Europe. 6 European countries have issued a statement: France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Spain, and the United Kingdom. They've all extended support to Denmark. I have a copy of their statement. It says, and I'm quoting, Greenland belongs to its people and only Denmark and Greenland can decide on matters concerning their relations. Security in the Arctic must therefore be achieved collectively in conjunction with NATO allies, including the United States, by upholding the principles of the UN Charter, including sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the inviolability of borders. These are universal principles and we will not stop defending them. And here's what Denmark's Prime Minister has said.
Greenland is also a member of NATO. It is a shared responsibility of the Arctic states, including the Kingdom, to ensure that there is security, peace and freedom in the Arctic region. But Denmark has always been a good ally of the United States. We want to continue to be so. But I also have to address some of what is being said from the American side. And of course, we will not accept a situation where we in Greenland are threatened in this way.
It's a tricky one for Denmark. Even in condemning America's statements, they're making an appeal. They're saying Denmark has always been a good ally to the US. And the reason for this caution is obvious. Even though Denmark has Europe's support, Trump has the leverage. He has the US military, and that's what accounts for the bulk of NATO's defense power. Europe itself relies on the American security blanket. How can it defend someone against Washington? Also, look at their reaction to the American attack on Venezuela. The US abducted the Venezuelan president, and all Europe could offer was carefully worded statements. No pushback, no outrage, no accusations of violating a nation's sovereignty. Europe remains silent. As the US takes claim to Venezuela's natural resources, Europe hasn't said a word. This has exposed their hypocrisy and emboldened Donald Trump. He's betting on the same silence to have his way with Greenland. Nicolas Maduro has been accused of a lot. He's been accused of drug trafficking, of narco-terrorism, and of trying to attack the United States. But yesterday, Trump dropped the biggest charge against him: dancing.
They've been after this guy for years and years and years. And, he's a violent guy. He gets up there and he tries to imitate my dance a little bit. But he's a violent guy, and he's killed millions of people.
Dancing. If you've watched videos of Nicolas Maduro before, you might know this. The ousted Venezuelan president loves dancing. He grooved at public rallies, he made heart signs to the crowd, he danced to popular mixes, and at times he's even danced to techno loops of his own speeches. And when not dancing, Maduro would be singing his heart out. Listen to this.
Not one. Be happy. No, crazy one. No, be happy.
You would think, what a happy president. The economy was collapsing, there was hyperinflation, food shortages were rising, people were in extreme poverty, yet nothing stopped Maduro and his moves. But there's one person who did not like his grooves, and that was Donald J. Trump, another president and fellow dancer-in-chief. Now, dance may be a strange reason to oust someone, but this is Donald Trump we are talking about. In the last few months, Maduro made many public appearances and he danced at most of these rallies, which wasn't something new or out of the ordinary. Like I said, Maduro has a long history of grooving at rallies, and it's not just him. His mentor and predecessor did the same. That's former Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez. So it's a bit of a trend. They dance at rallies. But reports suggest that Donald Trump did not like it. He saw Maduro's dance as an insult, as a sign of nonchalance, and a way to show that Maduro was not taking Trump's statements seriously. You heard him talking about it. Trump says Maduro was even copying him. So was that one of the reasons to oust him? Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But like I said, with Trump, you never know. And while we are talking about Maduro, dancing is not the only interesting thing about him. Maduro also has an India connect. The Venezuelan president was raised Catholic, but in the 1990s, he started dating Celia Flores, who is his current wife. She introduced him to Satya Sai Baba. He is an Indian spiritual leader. In the year 2005, the couple traveled to Puttaparthi. It's a town in the Indian state of Andhra Pradesh. Here, Maduro and his wife met Satya Sai Baba at his Prasanthi Nilayam ashram. Reports say Maduro was moved by this visit. Photos show him sitting on the floor listening to the guru. In 2011, when Sai Baba died, Maduro was a foreign minister of his country and Venezuela did something unprecedented. They passed an official condolence resolution. Venezuela declared a day of mourning. And when Maduro became president, he hung a portrait of Sai Baba at the presidential palace, right next to the portraits of Simon Bolivar and Hugo Chavez. And it's not just Maduro. His deputy, Venezuela's acting president, also follows Satya Sai Baba. I'm talking about Delcy Rodriguez. She has visited this ashram multiple times. The last such visit was in 2024. She paid respects at his memorial in Andhra Pradesh. Now you would think it's strange, but Satya Sai Baba's movement has a huge presence in Latin America. It has offices in 22 countries and Venezuela is the biggest. Under Maduro's protection, the Satya Sai organization flourished in Venezuela. It operated freely despite crackdowns on foreign NGOs. The first center was established in Caracas in 1974. Since then, the Maduro regime has allowed them to run schools, and the country has around 2 lakh followers of this movement. It goes to show how Nicolas Maduro had two sides to his personality, the dancing dictator on one side and the spiritual follower on the other. But right now, he's not on a podium. He's a prisoner on US soil. So Nicolas Maduro remains in US custody. Venezuela is entering a moment of deep uncertainty. The country's allies are watching closely and the world is waiting to see what comes next. But this story is not just about a captured president. Maduro was not taken alone by the US on Saturday. They also captured his wife. Her name is Celia Flores. She is Venezuela's first lady and a woman who helped shape Maduro's regime for years. Inside Venezuela, she is called the first combatant, the strategist and the power behind the throne. Tonight, we tell you her story about who she is and how she ended up in a New York prison. Here's a report.
She was never just the first lady of Venezuela. Inside Venezuela's regime, Celia Flores was known by another name, the first combatant. Flores was born in 1956 in central Venezuela and was raised in the working-class neighborhoods of western Caracas. She trained as a lawyer, specializing in labor law and criminal law. In the 1990s, her life changed inside a prison. Hugo Chavez, a soldier-turned-politician, had tried to overthrow the government. He failed, and he was jailed. Flores joined the legal team fighting to free him. That was where she met Nicolas Maduro, a bus driver and union organizer 6 years younger than her. She played a key role in the legal effort that helped secure Chavez's release, and together they rode his revolution to power. When Chavez became president in 1999, Flores and Maduro were rewarded with senior posts. She entered the National Assembly and, in 2006, made history as the first woman to preside over Venezuela's parliament. But her leadership style raised eyebrows. She was accused by critics of appointing several relatives to public posts. When journalists confronted her, she called them mercenaries. She later restricted press access to congressional proceedings. Those close to the couple understood the dynamic early on. One former colleague put it simply: Flores was the brains and Maduro was the brawn. She did not seek the spotlight because she focused on what mattered most: power inside the system. Reports suggest Flores was deeply involved in judicial and prosecutorial appointments, prioritizing loyalty within the courts and legal institutions. Critics described her as a decisive force behind major political decisions. Maduro himself acknowledged her role, calling her the first combatant. When Chavez died in 2013 and Maduro narrowly won the presidency, they married. But Flores made a calculated choice. She stepped back from daily political visibility, appearing selectively on television while retaining influence behind the scenes. Then, the allegations surfaced. In 2015, 2 of her nephews were arrested by U.S. agents in Haiti. They were planning to smuggle hundreds of kilograms of cocaine into the U.S. Both nephews were convicted in New York and sentenced to 18 years. Flores called it a kidnapping. Washington called it proof. Then came more accusations. U.S. prosecutors alleged that Flores had accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes. She denied everything. Sanctions followed from Canada and the United States. Despite the allegations, Flores remained politically influential inside Venezuela, until the raid. U.S. forces moved into Caracas in the early hours of Saturday. They took both Maduro and Flores and flew them to New York, where they are being held in a federal jail. At her first court hearing on Monday, Flores pleaded not guilty. Maduro sat nearby. The charges? Narco-terrorism and drug trafficking conspiracy. If convicted, they face decades in prison. The next hearing is scheduled for the 17th of March. For now, the woman long described as the power behind the throne waits for her fate.
What does a world leader need? Many attributes come to mind, but some are more important than others, like decency, class, and wisdom. Just ask Donald Trump. He famously has none of these. Yesterday, the US president spoke at a Republican retreat. He was supposed to focus on domestic issues. It was supposed to be like a briefing before the midterm elections, but Trump went off script. He spent a lot of time talking about diplomacy. He also spoke about Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. First, listen to what he said.
I mean, I had India coming to me, sir, I've been waiting 5 years. We're changing it. We're changing it. India ordered 68 Apaches, and Prime Minister Modi came to see me. Sir, may I see you, please? Yes, I have a very good relationship with him. He's not that happy with me because, you know, they're paying a lot of tariffs now because they're not doing the oil, but they are. They've now reduced it very substantially, as you know, from Russia. We're getting rich.
3 things to note. For starters, the imitation. Extremely poor and tasteless. This is not how world leaders should talk about each other, certainly not about their partners. Secondly, it is not 68 Apache helicopters, it is 28. India bought them in 2 batches from the United States. The first deal was signed in 2015. Those 22 helicopters were delivered on time. The deal for the remaining 6 was signed in 2020, and those were delayed by 15 months. Normally, sellers would be ashamed of such delays. But look at Donald Trump. He is mocking the buyers for asking about the delays. It's classic Trump. Now for the third point. Trump says India has cut Russian oil exports. But that's not exactly true. In September and October, the trade did take a plunge. That's when Trump slapped 25% tariffs on India. During that time, we did see a correction. But since then, the exports have picked up again. In November, Russian oil imports reached a 6-month high. India was buying 1.7 million barrels per day. That was 4% up from October. In December, the trade continued. India was projected to buy 1.5 million barrels per day by the end of the month. What explains the revival of imports? Possibly two things. One, Russian President Vladimir Putin visited India in early December. Maybe his visit reset the energy ties. And two, the India-US trade deal remains in a limbo. India has made multiple concessions, yet Trump has not agreed to a trade deal. So maybe New Delhi thought, what's the point?
January 6, 2021.
But coming back to the speech yesterday, what does this mean for India? Well, it's a strategy that we've seen before. Make public claims, reveal conversation details, mock foreign leaders and hope they fall in line. Trump used the same strategy against France yesterday. Listen to what he said about President Macron.
You know Emmanuel Macron, I love the French accent, Emmanuel. They said, listen, you're going to have to raise your prices a little bit because we're paying 14 times more than you. That's a lot, right? We're paying numbers. In other words, we're making up. We will not do that. Yes, you will, Emmanuel, 100%, because I was told they wouldn't do it. And this is, you can take Emmanuel and add up Hans, you can add up Ludwig, you can add every name in the book. It's all the same. The answer is no. We're not going to double our drug prices.
The American people must be proud. This is their representative on the world stage. The question is, how is India responding? New Delhi has not said anything about Trump's latest remarks, but Foreign Minister Jaishankar did speak about Venezuela. He did condemn the US attack. He did not rather condemn the US attack, but he did point out the double standard. When India retaliated against Pakistani terrorism, the world urged caution. They spoke about international law and restraint. But now, there's absolute silence.
They'll offer you free advice. If something happens, they'll say, no, please don't do that. It worries us if there is tension. Sometimes you hear people saying, like it happened during Operation Sindhu. Now, if you ask them, saying, oh, really, you're worried? Why don't you look at your own region and ask yourself, what are the levels of violence there? How much risks have you taken? How much worry the rest of us have about what you are doing?
India won't give up Russian oil and Trump won't let up the pressure. So what happens next? If there is a peace deal in Ukraine, things may improve. Until then, it will be tense. Trump was busy with Venezuela in November and December, so his attacks on India had suddenly disappeared. But after the operation, perhaps he's free again, free to target and mock India. He's trying to negotiate in public. He's piling the pressure through press conferences. But India likes a low-key approach. Less noise, more work. It's a clash of styles, interests, and attributes. And it won't be ending in a hurry. Now let's shift our attention to Iran, where protests have been on for more than 10 days now, and the situation is getting out of hand. Take a look. That's the famous Grand Bazaar in Tehran. Yesterday, it looked like a war zone. Protesters clashed with Iran security forces. Reports say they were chanting slogans against the regime. Iran security forces responded with tear gas, and from there, the situation got out of hand. You heard that. These protesters wanted the regime to be overthrown. They were chanting against Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the so-called supreme leader of Iran. Like I said, these protests began 10 days ago. The regime cracked down. Many people have died. Tehran is yet to release an official death toll, but rights groups say at least 36 people have died and more than 60 protesters have been injured. More than 2,000 of them have been arrested. The scale of this protest is massive. There are 31 provinces in Iran. The unrest has spread to 27 of them. And in the days ahead, the anger could explode because the economic crisis in Iran is deepening. The country's central bank has made a major move. It has slashed its subsidized dollar rate. What does that mean? For many years now, Iran has subsidized exchange rates. This is to support the import of basic goods, to keep inflation in check. But reports say the central bank is cutting this subsidy. And this is a major decision. It's a big sign of distress. It will send shockwaves through the economy. Basic goods will become even more expensive. Importers and producers will have to shell out more for the same product. So inflation will rise further. Prices of basic goods will increase and families will struggle to make ends meet. And remember, their life is already quite tough. Inflation is hovering close to the 50% mark. Iran's currency, the rial, has crashed. In fact, this was the trigger for the protest, the collapse of the Iranian currency. That was the trigger. Even today, the rial is trading at 1.4 million to the dollar, meaning if you exchange $1 US, you will get 1.4 million rial in return. This is how severe the crisis has become. And now it could get even worse. The protest began on the 28th of December when shopkeepers in Tehran took to the streets. They were angry over the collapse of the rial. Soon, university students joined in, and then the protest spread from Tehran to other cities across the country. The Iranian leadership has been cautious in its response. President Masoud Pezeshkian has admitted that the situation is spiraling. Speaking about the protests, he said, and I quote, "The government cannot manage this crisis alone, and that the state does not have that capacity." In other words, the president is saying that the Iranian state lacks the capacity to contain this crisis. At the same time, the regime does not want to look weak. So it is cracking down on the protesters. Look at what Iran's top judge has said. He said there will be no leniency for the rioters, and he blamed Iran's enemies, the US and Israel, for fueling this unrest.
Those who today come into the streets to take part in riots or lead them or support them or assist them in light of this explicit declaration of position by the criminal Zionist regime and likewise by the criminal president of the United States and the issues they raised, that if anyone comes into the streets for riots or to create insecurity or supports them, then no excuse remains for them. The matter has become very clear and transparent. They are now operating in line with the enemies of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
That was a rare interview from Iran's top judge. It reflects the gravity of the crisis. The regime is sending a message that it's preparing for a bigger crackdown. It will respond to the protests with force. And that only means more tension in the days ahead. We'll keep tracking this story for you. Our next story is from Yemen. Yemen has been at war for more than 10 years and it has worsened in the last 10 days. Yemen has been divided into two parts. The north is controlled by the Houthis. The south is home to the internationally recognized government. This government is backed by Saudi Arabia. But there's also a separatist group in the south, a group called the STC, the Southern Transitional Council. This group is backed by the UAE and it wants to break away from Yemen to create an independent southern state, a separate country. The Saudis don't like it. So they slammed the UAE and then launched airstrikes against the STC. As tensions rose, Saudi Arabia called for talks. It tried to engage with the separatist leaders. But when the plane to Riyadh took off yesterday, the main separatist leader was not on board. His name is Erdous al-Zubaydi. Saudi Arabia says he has fled. His group says he has not. Meanwhile, the crisis has escalated sharply. Here's a report.
At first, it was meant to be a flight to Saudi Arabia's Riyadh. Talks, de-escalation, and a chance to pull Yemen back from another crisis. But when the plane took off, one man was missing. Erdous al-Zubaydi, the leader of Yemen's southern separatists, was not on board. Saudi Arabia says he fled. His own group says he did not. And since then, no one can say with certainty where he is. On the streets of Aden, the tension is visible. Security checkpoints are everywhere. Southern separatists are stopping cars, searching vehicles and patrolling neighborhoods. They say Zubaydi is in Aden and is overseeing security operations. But Saudi Arabia-backed forces says something very different. They say intelligence showed him allegedly mobilizing armed forces, moving weapons and distributing ammunition. Within hours, Saudi warplanes struck his home province of Dale. There were more than 15 airstrikes. Reports suggest at least 4 people were killed. This was not an isolated incident. Zubaydi leads the Southern Transitional Council, or the STC. It is a UAE-backed separatist movement, one that openly calls for an independent southern state. For years, the STC was part of Yemen's internationally recognized government. It was an uneasy arrangement, but one that held. The group says southern Yemen was once its own country, and that since unification in 1990, the South has been politically and economically marginalized. For years, that demand simmered in the background. Then, in December 2025, it burst into the open. STC forces seized several resource-rich territories in southern Yemen.
We demand that the political leadership to restore the state of South Arabia. This is the will of the people.
That advance changed the equation. Saudi Arabia saw it as a direct threat, not just to Yemen's unity, but to its own security. Riyadh shares a long and porous border with Yemen, and it fears instability spilling across it. What followed was a sharp break between two allies, Saudi Arabia on one side, the UAE on the other. Both once fought together against the Iran-aligned Houthi rebels. Now they are backing rival forces on the same battlefield. When Zubaydi missed the flight to Riyadh, the political response followed almost immediately. Yemen's Saudi-backed Presidential Leadership Council stripped him of his position. They accused him of high treason, armed rebellion, and committing abuses against civilians. Saudi-backed forces are now moving to retake territory.
This operation is not a declaration of war, nor an attempt at escalation. Rather, it is a responsible preventive measure.
Just days before he disappeared from public view, Zubaydi spoke of dialogue.
The Transitional Council invites the international community to promote dialogue between the parties involved in the South and the North around the path and mechanism that guarantee the right of the people of the South.
Today, that message stands in stark contrast to the reality. The South is divided, the coalition is fractured, and the risk of a wider confrontation is growing.
It's very easy to spread fear and violence. You get some people together, you radicalize them, and finally you unleash them on the streets. Do you know what's harder? Using those same radicalized goons to win an election, to inspire your people and your country. In Bangladesh, the Jamaat is learning this the hard way. Elections are just 5 weeks away, and as things stand, the Jamaat is expected to lose. Polls show the BNP winning the election. BNP is the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. Meanwhile, the Jamaat will finish second. This has clearly made the group very desperate. First, the Jamaat chief made a ridiculous offer. He called for a unity government in Dhaka, basically a government of all political parties together.
Because we want to see a stable nation, at least for 5 years. If the parties come together, that we'll run the government together.
Nobody took up that offer. So now the Jamaat is questioning the election itself. On Monday, their top leaders met in Dhaka and they made two major claims. One, there is no environment for a free, fair and impartial election. And two, the administration is favouring one party. Clearly, it was a reference to the BNP. And today, the Jamaat reiterated those allegations. They claim that they are being discriminated against. By whom? So-called partisan election officials. This is the classic whining of a loser. If you can't win, just blame the referee. The truth is, the Jamaat is distorting facts. Yes, there is an atmosphere of fear in Bangladesh. Minorities are being killed on a weekly basis, but that's because of radical Islamists. It's because of groups like the Jamaat. Also, what bias are they talking about? Muhammad Yunus's interim regime lifted the ban on the Jamaat. He released Jamaat leaders from jail. He also reinstated them as a political party. So the Jamaat and Muhammad Yunus never had any issues. It was the BNP that repeatedly clashed with him. So again, where is the bias? All these allegations and statements beg the same question. Is the Jamaat trying to derail the election? Will they try to get it postponed? Well, the change in tone is evident. Until last month, the Jamaat was quite eager for polls. Look at what their chief said in December, and I'm quoting. It is not our desire to postpone the election. If for any reason the February polls are delayed, the country will face a severe crisis. There is no justification for rescheduling. Even a slight deviation will hurt the nation, and we do not want that. So what has changed now? Well, two things have changed. One, a radical student leader was shot and killed. His name was Osman Hadi. His death triggered major Islamist violence. We saw mobs burning public property and media offices. Those pictures must have shocked ordinary Bangladeshis. They offered a sneak peek into a Jamaat-run country. Secondly, their main rival got a boost. BNP leader Tariq Rahman returned from exile. He was welcomed by tens of thousands of people in Dhaka. Days later, the party was jolted. Rahman's mother and former Prime Minister Khalida Zia passed away. Yes, the BNP lost a powerful figure, but the outpouring of sympathy and grief was huge. Again, it was proof of the BNP's popularity. Maybe that's why the Jamaat is complaining now. But frankly, this is all their fault. We are talking about a group with a lot of bad blood. They supported Pakistan's genocide in 1971 and they supported implementing the Sharia law. It is not an ideal pitch for a young, vibrant population. Now look at the other side, the BNP. Tariq Rahman's strategy is clear. Focus on nationalism and positivity. On Monday, he met leaders from Bangladesh's left-wing parties, and here's what he told them. The 1971 Liberation War laid the foundation of Bangladesh. Without that war, Bangladesh's existence cannot be imagined. Contrast this with the Jamaat. They trace Bangladesh's roots to religion. Meanwhile, the BNP is tracing it to Bangladeshi nationalism. Also, Tariq Rahman is projecting a moderate image. This week, he met a delegation of minorities. He promised to protect Bangladeshis regardless of their religion. Like I said, the contrast is clear, and maybe it should not surprise us. The BNP is a well-oiled political machine. They have ruled Bangladesh for more than 10 years. They have experience running campaigns. But the Jamaat, their speciality is riots and mob violence. The question is, will they resort to that speciality if they lose the election? Europe is back in the headlines. A severe winter spell is disrupting daily life across the continent. Hundreds of flights have been cancelled, trains have been delayed or suspended, major roads have been blocked, and thousands of passengers have been stranded at busy airports and stations. The disruption has now entered its third day, and authorities say it is far from over. More snowfall is expected in the coming days. Here's a report.
Snow falling on airport runways. Departure boards flashing red. Passengers waiting in the terminals. This is Europe today. For a third straight day, snow, ice, and fierce winds have brought large parts of the continent to a standstill. Planes are grounded, trains are delayed, roads are dangerous, and for thousands of travelers, there is no clear way forward. The worst disruption has been at Europe's busiest airports. In Paris, more than 100 flights were canceled at the Charles de Gaulle airport on Wednesday.
So, as you know, the storm is kind of heavy yet. So, I don't know, we're going to the next station to see what can they do. Like I said before, our next trip is from Amsterdam.
French authorities ordered airlines to cut schedules amid the harsh weather. This is so that crews could clear runways and de-ice aircraft.
At Paris airports, there will be significant reductions in flight schedules. I mean tomorrow morning, particularly at Roissy-Charles de Gaulle Airport, with cuts of around 40% of flights between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m., and around 25% of flights at Orly between 6 a.m. and 1 p.m., before, we hope, a return to normal in the afternoon.
Across the Paris region, public buses have been suspended. Nearly half of mainland France has been placed on alert for heavy snowfall. In Amsterdam, the disruption has been even worse. At Schiphol Airport, more than 700 flights have been canceled in a single day. Over 1,000 passengers have been forced to spend the night inside the terminal, and queues stretched across the halls. For some, the frustration has been building for days.
I can describe this situation from since Friday afternoon: chaotic, unacceptable, frustrating, annoying. I can get more adjectives, but you can imagine what we could feel for 4 days ago. It's totally unacceptable, the situation.
This chaos has a clear cause. Europe is in the grip of one of its most intense cold snap of the winter so far. Temperatures have plunged well below freezing. Amid this, a storm has also hit Europe's Atlantic coast. It is called Goretti, the first named storm of the year. And it is not hitting one country, it is spreading across the continent. Snow has blanketed France, the Netherlands, Britain, Belgium, Germany. Other nations are seeing heavy snowfall due to a broader Arctic cold blast. In Sweden, officials warn of possible power cuts. In Denmark, people are being urged to stay home. And in Britain, schools have closed. The heavy winter weather has also turned deadly. 6 people have died in weather-related accidents, 5 in France and 1 in Bosnia, where heavy snow and rain cause floods and power outages.
We are used to water levels rising during the winter, but we have never seen them rise so dramatically.
And it's not over yet. Authorities across Europe warn the worst may not be over. More snow is forecast. More cancellations are expected. And for travelers stuck between airports, train stations, and icy roads, this winter storm is no longer just about the weather. It is about waiting and uncertainty.
Imagine this. It's Monday morning, your alarm clock is blaring. You've hit snooze 5 times and you're picking up your phone to hit snooze again. You feel tired, you feel groggy, and the weekend could not come faster. So what exactly is going on? Before you head to WebMD and Google signs of depression, let me tell you, it may not be depression or the weather. It may be something called social jet lag. And I'll tell you what that means. You already know what jet lag is. You travel across time zones, your body clock gets disrupted, and you have what is called jet lag. But social jet lag is different. And to understand this, we need to start with the body's natural timer, something called the circadian rhythm. It is the human body's 24-hour internal clock. It tells you when to wake up, when to eat, when to slow down and rest, when to sleep, and sometimes our body clock goes haywire. Say you have a strict schedule from Monday to Friday, but on weekends you party till late, or you binge watch a show, or you just stay up late. And then there's the holiday season. A lot of people are still recovering from it. It's when sleep does not count, calories do not count, and there is no real schedule to follow. This is where you will be hit by social jet lag. It's the difference between your body clock and your social clock. There is no physical travel involved, but your sleep timing jumps back and forth every week. Like I said, there are a number of reasons for it. One is your daily routine. Some people are naturally wired to sleep late. Their energy peaks at night, but schools and offices start in the morning, so there's a fundamental mismatch. The second reason is your screens, your phones, laptops, TVs. They emit light, and this light tricks your brain into delaying sleep. The longer you are on the screen, the later you sleep. Reason 3 is weekend sleep compensation. Most of us restrict sleep on weekdays, that's 5 days every week. And then we oversleep for 2 days to compensate. This creates 2 separate sleep identities, the weekday you and the weekend you. And reason 4 is your social life. Like I said, your weekend plans wreck your sleep. It leads to social jet lag. And let me give you the classic symptoms: feeling exhausted in the morning, being alert only at night, trouble sleeping on Sunday night, mood swings, poor focus and concentration, always needing coffee. I could go on. And let me repeat, this is not laziness. This is your biology confused by your routine. Over months, this increases the risk of weight gain, metabolic imbalance, diabetes, and heart issues. And it's worse in India because as a country, we sleep less than the global average. Let me show you a survey from 2024. It found that 61% of Indians get under 6 hours of uninterrupted sleep. 38% sleep for just 4 to 6 hours. Of course, it's not good for the body. So what can you do? How can you recover from social jet lag? Well, there is some good news on this front. Unlike real jet lag, you don't need time zones to fix this. You just need consistency. Try to sleep and wake up at similar times, even on weekends. Get morning sunlight. Reduce bright screens late at night. Eat earlier at night. Exercise regularly. Unwind before sleeping instead of crashing. Maybe read a book. Because your body loves routine more than you love weekends. And if you fix that mismatch, you fix the fatigue, you fix the focus, you fix the Monday morning you. We are telling you all of this in the middle of the week so that you can think about it and try it this weekend, and also tell us if it works for you. Netflix's hit series Stranger Things has finally come to an end after almost 10 years. The finale was broadcast last week. It all began in 2016 in a small town named Hawkins with a bunch of kids. 5 seasons later, the final episodes dropped like holiday gifts. So 10 years later, Hawkins is finally quiet. But the fans are not done. They can't seem to let go of the show. They want spin-offs and prequels. Seems like the internet is still upside down and memes just won't stop. Take a look. It's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Russia's Putin joins the congregation for an Orthodox Christmas service in Moscow. A cold snap turns the Oxford flood plains into a natural ice rink. And a humanoid robot becomes a blackjack dealer in Las Vegas. Finally, we are taking you back in history. On this day in 2015, 2 gunmen stormed the Paris office of satire magazine Charlie Hebdo. 12 people were killed. The magazine was targeted for publishing controversial caricatures of Prophet Muhammad. The attack sparked global outrage, with millions rallying in solidarity with the slogan, Je suis Charlie. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
The world doesn't fit in boxes, so why should your news? From battlefields to negotiation tables, from internet outrage to real-world injustice. The conversations everyone is having and the ones they're avoiding. It's the same show, but this new year, Firstpost America gets a new look. I'm Kerry Johnston, and this is Firstpost America.